I'm Greg Shapiro, and let's queer up the USA View. Ex-New York Times editor alleges militant anti-trans culture at the paper. A former New York Times editor is accusing the paper's top leadership of shutting down internal criticism and taking a militant stance on trans issues. Trans journalist and campaigner Billie Jean Sweeney told Trans News Network that senior staff at the 175-year-old publication blocked dissent over its reporting on trans people in the lead-up to the 2024 U.S. election. Sweeney said the Times used to allow staff to raise questions and criticisms about senior staff decisions through employee resource groups, but later the paper shut the groups down. Billie mentioned, quote, "One of the things that happened was the New York Times chairman, A.G. Sulzberger, kind of came around and gave a stump speech to every part of the paper, including the international desk. He talked for 40 minutes about how we were going to cover the election fairly and that sort of thing," end quote. She added that the speech felt out of place for desks not directly involved in election coverage, saying staff were left wondering, why are we talking about this? Around the same time, New York Times chairman A.G. Sulzberger said at a Reuters Foundation event in March 2024 that the Times had protected young people through its coverage of trans youth. Sweeney said internal tensions escalated after that, with dissent silenced through actions like canceling internal forums. The Times trans coverage has long drawn criticism. In 2023, more than 100 LGBTQ+ organizations signed an open letter accusing the paper of publishing biased and inaccurate reporting that endangered trans people. That letter called for an end to anti-trans stories and demanded the hiring of at least 4 full-time trans journalists. Sweeney says that it still hasn't happened. Quote, "They still don't have any trans journalists covering trans news in the newsroom," end quote. Okay, kids, there is nothing new about this. It's been going on for years. The Times has a miserable history when it comes to coverage of subjects such as LGBTQ rights and AIDS. More recently, the Times hired right-wing anti-gay writer David French as a columnist. That was in 2023. And they continue to allow that twisted, self-loathing, bitchy homosexual, not gay, homosexual, Andrew Sullivan to spew his anti-trans bullshit. So I don't see a change coming at all anytime soon.
Yeah, I kind of wasn't too surprised over this story either, right? It being the New York Times and just what I've seen, in the last couple decades, to be completely honest, right? I mean, they don't cover Black folks accordingly. They don't cover the immigration, issues that we're going through, accordingly, But I mean, from our seat, from all of our seats, you cannot cover trans lives accurately while sidelining trans journalists. You just can't. Exactly. You know what I mean? You just can't. No one is going to give that full picture, that full story, and that full voice unless they're living that experience, So I'm kind of not shocked over this, and who's going to hold them accountable? They should have hired 4 trans writers by now, and they still haven't. They're not going to.
That's my point. They'll just I feel like it's just feeding a little bit more time. They're putting a Band-Aid on it by saying something that they're going to make as a point of action, but it's not actually going to happen.
It's a shame because they did all of this wonderful work, and realizing in 2023 that they do have to make a change and they do have to add steps to that. And then somebody comes in and just says, we're shifting over here, and it's like, we're not talking, we've already talked about that. I'm like, are you crazy? You have to talk more about it. We're not, we're like, what? We're done with that. No.
Wow. Well, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.